Ready to go?
As you are.
All right, here we go. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Here.
Council members Achara.
Here.
Long.
Here.
Shepica. And Mayor Silciano.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and stand for a silent prayer. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And also, please remember Joan Huss, longtime resident of the Township and community leader who passed away this week. Okay. The notice requirement of the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting has been satisfied. A copy of the annual notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster, posted in Town Hall, and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk on December 29th, 2015. There are two emergency exits on the wall to my right that will take you to the front of the building, and another one to the left that will take you to the rear parking lot. Also, please note that all cell phones must be turned off. If you need to make a call, kindly make your call outside outside of the meeting room. Tonight we do have a presentation, but before that I just want to go around the horn and see if anybody has any comments. Councilman Long?
Nothing tonight, Bill.
Councilman Achara?
No, we're going to keep your meeting short tonight, Bill.
Okay. Andrew? No. Marty?
I'm a little concerned the room's going to sink this way. We're on like
That could happen. Well, I finally got everybody to move to the left, so
I was just beat me to it.
so that helps. Okay, tonight we have a presentation of the 2016 municipal budget. We'll tell you that this is a presentation and not the public hearing, which will be held at the next meeting. And before we start, I'd just like to make a few comments about the budget. About a year and a half ago, Mayor Siciliano, who could not be here tonight, he is a little under the weather, really got together with our CFO, our administrator, myself, Councilman Long. Between the five of us, we have over 100 years of municipal budgeting experience, and really said that it was his vision to stabilize the municipal tax rate. And he picked all of our brains and looked for ways to do that. Now, last year we were able to keep a stable tax rate, and going forward we were able to do that again this year. Again, our first obligation is to the taxpayers, and to make sure that services do not diminish and that the needs of the township are met. And I will tell you that our professionals have done an excellent job in putting this budget together. All of the council members did provide input, and even though this budget is not adopted yet, we are already working on the 2017 budget. It is our goal to not only stabilize the municipal portion of your taxes for last year and this year, but hopefully next year and the year after. That was our campaign promise, and we hope to be able to keep that. I know if the mayor was here, he would give thanks to our township administrator, Andrew, to our CFO, Steve Gallagher, and to all of our department heads in making this come true. And again, I will remind everybody that we can only control the municipal part of our budget. And this year your tax rate will remain flat. Again, what happens on the school board, what happens with the county, what happens in the fire districts are beyond our control. But that is our mission. And one thing, and I'll speak personally, that really made it aware for me was a year and a half ago when we were campaigning and we were walking neighborhoods and we were knocking on doors, and I saw how many people my age and older were still living in their houses, especially in the Oakhurst section. And it's our goal to make sure that they're able to afford to stay in their houses. I certainly want to be able to stay in mine. So without saying anything else, I will give the program to you, Stephen.
I need my
You're just the AV guy?
Yeah.
new township logo up there.
Yep,
They're
Looks
fooling
good.
around.
looks good. What do you think of that tea?
I like that.
Tea is, it's a good tea, baby.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Most of you have been through these before, so we'll hold the questions till the end, and we'll just run through an overview of the 2016 budget. Every year we start off with this slide, and Steve will bring them up one by one. But as the Deputy Mayor said, the overall number one goal this year was stabilize the tax rate, which we've been able to do, and we'll go through that in more detail as we go through the presentation. Personnel needs, obviously that's a huge part of our budget, so we're always trying to balance the need to contain costs with also the need to have adequate staffing in our various departments. So we'll go through that as well. Health insurance costs, huge driver in our budget. It's about almost 10% of our overall budget, and we'll go through some of the details in terms of the lower cost plans that our employees have opted into, as well as the high deductible health plan. Less reliance on surplus. Again, we're going to have slides on all this, so I don't want to spend a lot of time now, but that is something we've been able to achieve. More shared services. Again, we'll have a specific slide on that. Technology, it's really been a huge cost saver for us. We've been able to adopt that in almost every department. We all live in the modern age. It's changing at a rapid pace. The quicker we can adopt it, the more money we can save in certain areas. So we've certainly been open-minded to that. Infrastructure really doesn't come into the operating budget so much, but it's really the bread and butter of our capital budget, the roads, the parks, the recreational facilities. And then sale of surplus property. We do still have properties that we can sell. We have a lot of equipment that we've sold over the years, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. And this probably should be maybe at the top of the list next year, but maintain the quality of life. Ocean Township is a great place to live. We want to maintain that. We want to enhance it, and I think a lot of the things we'll talk about here will demonstrate that we have made a commitment to that. Got to quicken the pace, Steve. I know the numbers are small, and I do believe we had a slide on this last year, but this, just going back to the automated garbage collection, because I think this is a great example of how you can save a lot of money on one hand, increase the level of service that you're providing to the public, and really create a win-win situation all the way around. 2011 is when we went live with the automated garbage collection system. If you remember, we had that massive blizzard in December of 2010, and 2 weeks later we were delivering the carts for all of our residents to use. But without dwelling on this slide, we came up with projections as far as the cost savings on this when we rolled it out, and I'm very pleased to be able to report that the actual savings has been significantly higher than what we originally estimated. And we were intentionally conservative when we came out with those numbers, but I think it's really easy to come out and try to sell something. I think it's more challenging sometimes to go look back and see if it actually panned out the way you had projected it would. But in this case, it certainly has. And we'll post this whole slide deck on the website later today or first thing tomorrow, so you can look at the numbers. But again, I think it's just very interesting to look back and look at what the savings actually was on that program or that project. Again, this is a slide that we traditionally do. We've updated it again this year, and it's pretty remarkable, I think, when we look back at the fact that we've been able to eliminate 28 positions all through attrition. We never had a layoff, or we never had furlough days, anything of that nature, and they were pretty evenly spread. Steve can pull them up quickly, but they were pretty well spread across every department. I think Public Works clearly got hit the hardest, and hopefully over time we'll be able to bring back some of those positions. But then again, you look in sanitation, we literally have half the staff we had 7 or 8 years ago, and yet we're still able to provide the same service. So it's just proof that you can do things more efficiently, you can do things more effectively.
I just want to say one thing about that, Pat.
Sure, jump right in.
Andrew, if I may. If we stress the fact that we eliminated these positions, but we didn't give anybody a pink slip.
We did not in one circumstance, no. And that was our commitment when we got into it, that we would do it through attrition.
Right.
Steve wanted to add a little humor here. Why would our employees want something as intangible as a health care plan when they could have this cute first aid kit? But
That's Steve.
yeah, it is Steve. I think there's more to come. I don't know if you have any audio or video locked into this, but we'll find out. In terms of our employee benefits, again, these aren't things that we're necessarily happy that we've done, but they're things in this environment that we had to do. And one of them was eliminate the family coverage for new hires. And our thought was, if somebody comes to work for the township and they have 3 or 4 children, we will cover them, we will cover their children. But if they need spousal coverage, they'll have to either purchase that through us, which they can do, or they'll have to find it elsewhere. And that, again, I think there was a little bit of resistance at first, but it's been the policy for several years. It's pretty well entrenched at this point, and we're pleased that we did it because it has saved significant dollars. Lower the base level of health insurance coverage. I think Ocean Township is probably one of a handful of municipalities in the state of New Jersey where we specify which coverages our employees can pick in state health benefits. And if they want something different that's more expensive, they pay the difference. They can still select something else, but they're going to pay the full freight of the difference between what we've designated as the baseline plan and what they select. The other thing about this doesn't just apply to non-union people. This applies to all of our employees, which is, again, not all that common across the state. Chapter 78 was something people read about 6 or 7 years ago, where the employees were going to be required to contribute a certain amount to their health benefits based on their wages. And it was a 4-year ramp up. Year 1, they contributed a certain amount. Year 2, a little more. Year 3, a little more. And then it maxed out in year 4. We're up to year 4. So, that savings has essentially been built into our numbers, but some municipalities are now starting to back off of that and say, well, we're going to take it back down to year 3 or year 2. We haven't done that. The employees are used to having it at year 4. We're going to maintain it at year 4. We just adopted our new PBA contract a few meetings ago, and there's additional steps in there. A police officer who came to work for us used to work 7 years, maybe even 6 years in some circumstances, and be at top pay. Today, the new contract requires them to work, I believe it's 12 years now, before they get to top pay. So that's tremendous savings to the township if you have 10 new officers who are in the STEP program, or 15. Those increments are much smaller than they were historically, which is significant savings.
And there's no COLA.
Right, and while that officer is in steps, that number does not get adjusted by a cost of living number annually, or a cost of living adjustment annually. It's fixed for 2013, 14, 15, 16. The only thing that changes in the contract is the top pay. Longevity, again, something you've read about in the paper, where there's 10% longevity bonuses, 15% longevity bonuses. We've eliminated longevity pay for new hires for the 3 bargaining units listed there. And the other thing is, because now officers don't get top pay till 12 years, they don't get longevity till 12 years. Before, they would get top pay at 6 years and longevity at 6 years. So it's just another way to capture some savings. And then the vacation and sick leave allotment, we've just scaled back what employees are eligible for. When you have less employees, you need the people that are employed to be here. So we've had to scale back what we provide in terms of vacation and sick leave. And then the capped sick leave payouts at retirement for new hires. That was done, I think, probably back in 2011. So that's been on the books for a while. And again, that's something that over time will create tremendous savings for the township. Surplus, you hear us talk about surplus a lot. This slide just shows you what we anticipate in that year's budget from our surplus left over from the following year. And you can see back in 2007, it was right around $6.5 million. It peaked out in 2010 at almost $7.5 million. The reason for that was we lost significant amount of state aid. The interest income that we had been generating really went to almost nothing. We had a tremendous amount of tax appeals that we were issuing refunds on. So we leaned heavily on the surplus in 2009, 10, and 11. But then we made that policy decision that each year we were going to reduce that reliance on surplus. And we did it again this year by about almost $100,000 less than what we used in 2015.
And if I can interject,
Please do.
because of the fact that we were good stewards with the taxpayers' money and we were able to generate surpluses over a period of years, when we had something like Superstorm Sandy in 2012, we did not do what certain other municipalities did. What they tried to do was get the money through FEMA and then do the work in their towns. We didn't do that. We were able to extract, I want to say,
The expenses were about $1.2 million.
$1.2 million. We were able to get the work done immediately. Now, obviously, in certain towns that were closer to the ocean, they had needs that we didn't necessarily had, but our problems basically had a lot to do with downed trees. The point I'm trying to make is if you don't keep these surpluses and you don't do a good job of maintaining them, you run the risk of running into a problem in the event of some catastrophic event, which in this case was Superstorm Sandy. We were able to put the money out from the town coffers, and then we were able to recoup it when we went to FEMA and made our application for the monies that were available to us as a result of that storm.
Shared services is a term we use a lot, a term you hear a lot, and we do continually try to look for new opportunities for shared services. One that we did last year was a regional recycling center. It's now open to residents of Deal, Interlake, and Allenhurst and Lock Arbor. The reason that is because the county provided the majority of the funding for that center, and that was one of the requirements. We do also provide 911 services to Eatontown through our dispatch center. TOSA, we talked about that at our last meeting. We've greatly expanded and built upon that shared service that we've had with them for years to take into a number of different activities. Court facilities, the room we're sitting in today is also used by West Long Branch almost every week for their court proceedings. Vehicle maintenance. Again, we have scaled back the number of employees we have at our garage, but we've been able to use a state contract that Seco Chevrolet has to handle any overflow issues we have at the garage. Electricity and natural gas, about 5 years ago we started purchasing both of those items through a cooperative, and it's really made a difference on the amount that we pay out for both of those items, which we'll see in a graph here in a minute.
Just as an add-on, we're going out for natural gas in
Okay.
3 weeks, and our strike price is 5% less than we're paying now. So we hope to get another savings on that.
Actually, here's that slide, which will show you the top one that Steve's just dropping in there. That's what we spend for electricity. The second one, the middle darker blue one, is what we spend for street lighting, and the bottom one is what we spend for natural gas. Again, as Deputy Mayor Garofalo said, some of that's based on paying a lower price because we're buying it as part of a cooperative. Some of it's also based on just using less because we have more efficient HVAC equipment in almost all of our buildings. So when you add those two things together, you're going to see some pretty significant savings. Just more shared services here. Animal control, we've been partnering with Long Branch on that for years. Works out very well for both entities. Regional Health Commission for our health services. Monmouth County for the senior transportation. The Joint Insurance Fund. One thing to note on that, it's pretty interesting. That is for our general liability, auto liability, and workers' comp. Traditionally, they do a return of surplus, which almost every year offsets whatever our increase in premium is. So the net effect to the township is, even though the number that we have to budget for that has gone up, they've returned surplus to us almost equal to whatever that increase is. So that's just been a great win-win all the way around. The court fine collections, again, that was something that the state offered 3 or 4 years ago that we jumped on board, where the state partners with a vendor to go after bad debt from the municipal court. In terms of technology, vehicle maintenance, we have a rather large operation, a lot of expensive equipment. We've really gotten much better over the years of tracking the inventory of the parts that we have, which can be significant, and then the servicing of these vehicles, so that we know when we've invested enough in a vehicle in terms of service that maybe it's time to move on to a new one. So that's been a real benefit. POS is the way we track our employees' time off. And again, that used to be kept with paper records, that when somebody retired, you were pulling out 30 years worth of paper sheets to try to figure out what they were entitled to, what they weren't. That's all eliminated at this point. Online registration for COs, that's something that we just sort of started late last year, and we're kind of starting to really advertise and market this year. And then human services, almost all the programs they offer, whether it's rec, counseling, renting a room at the West Park Rec Center, that's all done online. So that's a real benefit in terms of saving time there. Online tax and sewer billing, we do have people who take advantage of that. And then, we used to have people always requesting copies of those bills. They can just go online now and find it themselves. We talked about the HVAC controls. The tax sale. I don't know if anybody's ever been to the tax sale. It's typically held in October. Used to be held in this room. It's not anymore. It's all done online, all done electronically. And without going into the details, there's quite a savings to the township doing it that way. Biggest one is we don't have to spend a couple $1,000s probably on the legal ad in the Asbury Park Press listing all those properties. So it's really been a nice program for us. We do have some updates. They will probably go live in April to the website. Just try to make it more user-friendly, really highlight those things that people can do online. People have busy lives today. They can't always get here between 8:30 and 4:30. So the more things we can make available online, the easier it is for everybody. This, again, is going back to solid waste, but I know the numbers are small, and you can look at this when it gets posted tomorrow. But what's really interesting about this slide is, beginning in 2008, we did away with the commercial garbage service that we were doing. So that's why you see that big drop from 12,000 tons to a little bit under 11,000 tons. And then we completely got out of that business in 2009. But you can see the amount of garbage we collect has steadily decreased. We went from, once you got the commercial garbage out of the way, it was about 9,300 pounds a year. Now we're down to 7,500 pounds a year. Well, how do you explain the difference? Well, a good chunk of it was just people getting the things in the right container, which means things that were being put in the trash were actually recyclable. Now that we made recycling easier with single stream and weekly pickup, people took advantage of that. And you can see it with the numbers. I mean, it's not something that we're guessing about. The numbers bear it out, and it's pretty amazing to see that, because every ton that gets shifted away from that solid waste line, you're saving about $90 to keep it out of the landfill. We were getting paid for the recyclable material. I don't think we're doing so well on that anymore. That market seems to have dried up. But you still avoid the $90 a ton to put it in the landfill. So overall, it's a winner. Road program is something that we try to be aggressive with every year, especially when you've had winters like we've had the last few years. We certainly try to get grants for that, and you can see we've been successful, whether it's Sunset Avenue, Allaire Avenue. Also, we got the county to do Monmouth Road for us. We've got another application into the state to do Green Grove Road. So there's a lot of just a lot of work. It's a never-ending project. You know, once we get done, we'll just go right back and start again. But it's been I think we've done probably more road work in the last 5 or 6 years than we did maybe in the 10 years prior to that. It's been very nice to see. West Park Avenue, we're looking to do a new activity pool where the kiddie pool is now. Again, that facility is dated. It's built back in the 70s, I would imagine, and it's just time to invest in it. We're going to do some renovations to the bathhouse as well to try to match that up with the look at the West Park Rec Center. The fairway out of fourth fairway at Colonial Terrace Golf Course, that just got renovated courtesy of a Monmouth County Open Space grant. I mentioned the West Park Rec Center again with the Community Development Block Grant from the county. And then Poplar Village. Did we close on Poplar Village yet, Marty? We did. So we'll soon be, we awarded the contract a couple meetings ago to do the demo. Hopefully early April you will start seeing the buildings come down there. But again, that was all done with grant money. FEMA, Green Acres, and Monmouth County Open Space. And then Public Works, when it snows, people want the streets plowed. So we do have to invest in heavy equipment. When they put their garbage out, they want that picked up too. So we have to constantly reinvest in our equipment and our facilities. We at the end yet, Steve?
No.
Quality of life. The new senior housing complex behind the post office on West Park Avenue. Again, we lost 66 or 67 units over Poplar Village. We're going to replace that with 96 units. So there's a net gain back there. Brookside Avenue, just a few blocks here from Town Hall. There's probably about 10 houses at this point that are going to be purchased by the state of New Jersey, and that those houses will be demolished and it'll be deed restricted as open space. The band shell, which has been a big initiative of the mayor and council to get that built and play a park. Community rating system, which is, again, without getting into the details, initiatives that we can take to lower flood insurance premiums for those in town that have to carry flood insurance. Debris removal from the brooks. It's something you don't think about, you don't see it necessarily every day, but we have to stay on top of that. It alleviates a lot of the flooding issues we have around town. The active transit network, which got kicked off 5 or 6 years ago, we're going to be striping the first bike lanes in Ocean Township later this spring. And then traffic improvements. The county has worked closely with us on West Park Avenue. We've got some initiatives in mind for Deal Road, and then we just had a meeting a couple weeks ago to look at some improvements to Highway 35. Just, again, trying to get better access for the businesses there, try to get better access for pedestrians. Township newsletter, the next one will be coming out in late April. Tree replacement program, the Shade Tree Commission has a giveaway coming up, I believe in mid-April around Earth Day. And then finally, we're just, I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're at the tail end of our affordable housing litigation, so hopefully that will be one less stress on our wallet if we can wrap that up. You don't think so, Marty? Tax levy cap bank status. This is, everybody read about the 2% property tax levy cap. Well, the budget that we've introduced and that we're discussing tonight, it's $630,000 below what we could raise in taxes and still be in compliance with that 2% cap. So I think that's a significant win for the taxpayers. If we go back to when that cap came in to play in 2011, if you total up all the money that we didn't raise that we were eligible to raise, as Steve's shown there, it's about $2.7 million, and that would have still kept us compliant with the cap. And if we would have captured that $2.7 million, the average taxpayer will be looking at about another $253 just on the municipal portion of their tax bill. So I think that's something that reflects well on the way we've put these budgets together.
And you can hold that in reserve though for future use if need be.
Well, you can only keep 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had 2011 and 12 fall off. 2013 has fallen off too. But I think the important thing is that's $2.7 million worth of taxation that we left on the table, didn't tax the taxpayers for.
Well, and I think the point there too is when that cap came out, I think the reaction was, well, every town will go to 1.99%. Well, it didn't happen here. I don't know what happened in other towns, but we never adopted that mentality. We always thought, well, we don't think we're going to come close to it anyway. In fact, we never have. So I think we'll continue that.
Just to give a plug to the Board of Education, every year that the cap was in effect, a 2% cap, every year the school board developed a budget that was under the 2% cap every year. So the combination of savings, under 2% for the school board, under 2% for municipal purposes, it leaves only the county as the third part of your tax bill. And of course the county, I know at least for this year, there's no increase for the county levy. Am I correct, Steve? There's no increase for the county levy. There's no increase.
I believe that's what was reported in the paper.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think there's no increase. So
Also, last Tuesday night, school board had their budget meeting. It's 2% or just a little less than 2%, so they also hit their cap.
Good. That's just good news for the taxpayers if everybody can do that.
My tax was $90 every year.
Bring it in next week. We'll break it down because I don't think it came from us the last 2 years. But anyway, let's go back to this. The numbers I realize are too small. The only thing we wanted to show on this is surplus. Remember at the beginning we said less reliance on surplus. You can see it here. 2014 we used just above 6.6 million. Last year just above 6.5 million, and this year about 6.475 million. So we want it. That's a trend that we want to continue. It's a trend that we will continue, but it takes a lot of work to get there. I also want to point out on this slide too that the taxes amount to be raised by taxation. It's the third line down. 20,668,000. 15, the identical number, 20,668,000. And then this year, 20,823,000. So it's an increase of about 150,000 in total. But again, we didn't adjust the tax rate. We did have appreciation in our assessed valuation, primarily through growth. And so but to see that number stay almost constant 3 years in a row, I think that's something that speaks well to the work that we've done with the township's finances. The percentage gain?
Question, the simple question from the amount appropriated has gone up. I didn't calculate the percent, but the other question related to that is what percentage increase did we have in our property assessments? Is it greater or less than the increase in the amount to be raised by taxation?
We can speak. I don't have that number for you, but I can tell you you almost have to break that number down as well, because some of it would be appreciation of existing properties, some of it would be new properties. Well, I understand that, but I'm saying you'd have to break that down to really answer that question. What we have here, it just shows you what the total assessed valuation was in the township, and this has been a battle we've been fighting because of the economy for the last 7 or 8 years. I don't know what we peaked out in terms of valuation. I think it was about 4.6 billion at one time. So we had 4.6 billion in total assessed valuation in the township. This goes back to 2013. We were just under 4.3 billion, and then that dropped again in 14 to basically 4.2 billion rather. 15 under 4.2 billion, and now this year it has gone up from basically 4.2 to 4.224. So that's not a tremendous amount of movement in that number. But it is what it is, and I do expect, we certainly have a number of projects that are in process that will add to that, which again should provide additional relief for the taxpayers. The only other thing, you can just see the average assessed home has gone from just under 405,000 to 390, almost 398,000. Not a lot of movement there either. Good, Steve. The blue is the assessed valuation, that slide we just looked at. The red is the added assessments. So things that came on mid-year that got added onto the tax rolls, and then the green is what we lost through appeals. The interesting thing is those numbers essentially met in 2015. What we added for new developments and what we lost as a result of tax appeals. Not quite crossing, but pretty close. The Monmouth County Assessment Demonstration Program. I'm sure everybody has read about this, maybe followed it a little bit. Again, there's a lot of factors at play there, but when we just look at the impact that it's had on Ocean Township, it saved us almost a little over $1.1 million. And Steve has some additional slides on that.
The successful county appeals. Now, what happened previous to the demonstration program was that the appeals would be filed, the judgments would be given out and everything like that, and that would all occur after the tax rate was struck and bills went out. So what you had to do was you had to either apply credits to the taxpayer's account. You had to either apply credits to the taxpayer's account for those appeals or refund that money. Now, in 2014 and 15, you can see the columns are in green, and I've got them in green because those are years those are the dollar amounts of those tax appeals. Now, those tax appeals were heard, the assessments adjusted in time for the tax billing to go out. So there were no credits, no refunds to the taxpayer. And those 2 years, the total amount of the appeals was just about 1.12 million. So, and that's real money because those credits in the previous years is money that we needed to collect from taxpayers that we didn't get or we had to pay out. And that money comes straight from surplus. And so from 2013 back, the county appeals were a drag on surplus. Now they're not. So it's really helped the town out. And I can show you with this graph here, this has got the county appeals and the state appeals. The county appeals are in blue, state tax appeals are in red. The green line represents what we reserve for state tax appeals annually, which is $450,000. And you can see starting with 2010, we start pretty much using up that entire $450,000 and then going over. Now, every year what I do when I close the books is I take the balance in the reserve for state tax appeals and I take an amount out of surplus to bring that back to 450. So when I have I'm going to use accounting terminology here, a debit balance in a reserve account, that's bad. So in years I've had to take $600,000-$700,000 out of surplus to bring me back to the $450,000 in my reserve for state tax appeals. In 2013, there were so many appeals, I had estimated that we were going to have about $1.4 million worth of refunds that we'd have to give. That would have brought our surplus number under $6 million, probably around $5.8 million is what I estimated. That would have translated to a very large increase in taxation for the taxpayers. What we did was we did a tax appeal refunding note in 2013 so that we could fund it with borrowing. In 2014, you can see we had even greater level of appeals. At the same time, the demonstration program came into existence, and so the county appeals, which I got in a lighter blue, we didn't have to refund or credit to the taxpayers because it was already taken care of when the bills were generated. So we had a much smaller number that we had to pay out. So it's been a very advantageous thing to the town. It saved the taxpayers big money in 2013, and it continues to save.
Without dwelling on this, when you read about this, I think this is all possible because they've moved the calendar for tax appeals. They're heard earlier, they're decided earlier, and then they're ultimately baked into the new total assessed valuation before the tax bills go out. So I think everybody, whether they like the program or don't like the program, I think everybody's on board with the new calendar aspect of it. So I think that's the one takeaway from this is it doesn't sound like a lot that they moved the calendar, but on our end, it made a tremendous difference in the way we have to handle tax appeals. Come on, Steve, we got a basketball game to watch tonight.
Right.
We're already missing it.
Okay, we'll go through these last slides pretty quick, but this is, as I said at the beginning, it's a huge component of our budget. The bottom section is the liability insurance costs, so workers' comp, auto liability, property liability. The red is the health insurance, which also includes dental. But the only thing I want people to look at here is it actually trended downward for 2016 as opposed to 15. So that goes back to all the things we talked about earlier. The way we offer benefits, what benefits we offer, the fact that employees have selected high deductible health plans. So it's just nice to see those, those policies reflected in lower costs, because that's what it was all about. This is what the employees contribute to their health benefits. And you can see in 2008, it really didn't register. And then in 2009, we had some changes to our union contracts. Same thing in 2010. And then in 2011, that Chapter 78 that I referenced earlier, that went into effect. And you can see that contribution rate has just taken off since then. So the employees are contributing roughly, about 20% of the overall health insurance costs through their premium contributions. Again, some people would say that's not high enough, but I think when you looked at where we started at in 2008 and where we're at today, it's a significant change. Pensions is another hot button issue. The only thing we're showing on this slide is just the total contribution we make. The police, public safety employees are in a separate pension system from other employees, so they're illustrated with the yellow, and then the purple is the non-public safety employees. I do expect there have been a lot of changes. Again, I don't want to go into the details, but a lot of changes in pensions for new employees going back 4 or 5 years ago. I would expect over time that'll give us some better control over that number as well. Again, this is just to put it in real terms. For every police officer that we have, if you just take the total amount we contribute, divide it by the total number of sworn police officers we have, it's about almost $27,000 a year in pension costs alone. So when people say, well, you need to hire 5 more police officers, you got to take these numbers into account. The bottom number shows for non-public safety employees. Solid waste disposal costs. This just puts in the numbers, the slide we looked at earlier. It's been a consistent downward trend. And we're not going to try to explain it. It is what it is, but it's nice to see that continue. Uh-oh. Wake up, Marty. Steve thought since Mayor Larkin is officially retired, we had to do away with the haircut slide that he used to put in there every year.
We have to discuss the choice of some.
Are you happy now, Steve? You got that out of the way? And there's Steve searching for the revenue. No comment. State aid. I thought you'd come up with a better couch, Steve. I know you've been working on this, but we have been searching the couch cushions for some change, but have not found it to date. Total state aid, and I mentioned this earlier as well, but there's the graph. It's been a constant number for the past, 7 years now? So We don't expect that to change anytime soon. If it did, it would be good news, but we don't expect that to happen. Let's be positive. Let's hope it stays the same. Interest income. Here's another one. And again, I know we talk about this every year, but think about that. We've over the course from 2007 to 2010, 11, call it, $1 million just is gone. And then you take in the other $1 million we lost in state aid, and take in the other $1 million we were giving away in tax appeals every year. It just put a $3 million hole in the budget. So it was, now it's baked in. So if it goes up, that will certainly be welcome news, but I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon either. UCC fees, this is Uniform Construction Code fees. Everything but the 16 number is an actual. The 16 number is an estimate. Some people say, why do you always budget low on this? The reason we budget a little low on this is because what happened between 2014 and 2015. It doesn't always go up. In fact, some years it goes down. So we try to be conservative with that number. You're just going to brutalize us with another interest income slide. There it is again, just showing it slightly. Oh, wait. Yeah, there it goes. So there's interest income.
He's got too much time on his hands.
Exactly.
There's Steve.
Could you hear that?
You're on
Is
TV.
that all right?
You're on TV.
This is slide, we're just focusing on non-tax revenue. So surplus and state aid being the two biggest components of that. You can see state aid, just taking those other slides and sort of illustrating them in a slightly different fashion. State aid as a percentage of the non-tax revenue has gone down pretty continuously since 2011. And I'm sorry, the state aid has pretty much flattened out. The surplus has gone down. So that's by design. That's not something we didn't anticipate. We've intentionally worked it that way. But the state aid, again, it was flat. So on that graph, it was essentially flat. Debt service costs, this is something where, again, policy decision made 8 or 9 years ago. We were going to live within that $2.5 to $3 million range. Very difficult to do because we get all kinds of requests. People want roads. People want they want the tennis courts resurfaced. They want the parks redone. They want this. But we only have so much to go around. We prioritize it, and we do live within that budget. Debt service costs. We did a permanent financing back in, was it 2000? I guess it was 2014 already. And we had to go before the rating agency to get a rating. We went before Standard & Poor's, and we got a AA+, which was nice. They're an independent outside agency. They came in, they examined our budgets, they looked at our audits, they interviewed Steve and I, they talked to the auditors, and I think it's for a community our size to get a AAA, which would be the next level up. It's pretty difficult. You'd really have to have some kind of a quirky situation to get that. So we were very pleased with the AA+. And these are just some things we pulled out of their report. But this, I remember specifically the way we managed surplus was one of the real strong points of the rating. And we just did a ordinance a couple meetings ago where we refinanced money that the county had undertaken the actual offering, and that's going to give $800,000 in savings over the next 7 or 8 years. County has a AAA rating, which is, there's maybe one other county in the state that has that. They may be the only one. Right. So that's, again, when we can piggyback on their AAA, it just saves us in interest costs, saves us in borrowing costs. This is just to give people an illustration. Where does your tax dollar go? Roughly a little over, what is that, about 64% goes to the schools, roughly 22% goes to the township, and the remainder goes to the county. So that's just an easy way to break it down. We finally there?
Oh, where'd it go?
And now the end is near. I saw a face.
Like this one, Marty?
Curtain.
Oh, it's a good
My friend
All right, well, look, mark that for next year, Steve. He wants to hear the Beatles.
Cha-ching.
Questions? Yes.
Thank you
You're welcome.
for keeping our taxes down as low as they are. One comment caught my attention, and that was that we're looking for a strike price for fuel that's going to be 5% less than what we're paying today.
It's for natural gas.
Natural gas.
Okay, what about for gas and diesel fuel?
The county, they bid that out every year, and then we piggyback on their bid package that they use.
And in terms of the percentage increases that we have for this year, where are we in terms of the budget?
What, in terms of what we budgeted for fuel appropriations?
We cut it by about 100,000.
It's a relevant question because when the Board of Ed reviewed the budget, it was a $700,000 to a $770,000 increase, which after some questioning, they then lowered to $740,000. So I'm just looking at a diversity in the perspective of two agencies, if you will, that have a different perspective on fuel costs.
Well, and I think to really get an answer, you'd have to look at a longer term horizon, because I don't know what we budgeted the year before. But that is one, it's real easy to lower that number. And you can get pretty greedy in lowering it. But as we all know, and as we've seen in the last 2 weeks, fuel prices can go up. No, I understand that, but we already had January, February, and essentially March built into that.
You lowered them.
We did.
They raised
I
them.
understand. I hear you.
I've got a whole lot of questions, but considering there's a lot of madness in March, can I set up an appointment with you?
Well,
Absolutely.
there's going to be a public hearing on the budget next meeting, so you can, or if you want to wait till then.
Better
Or,
off answering.
okay.
Yeah, he gets mad in private.
Mr. Lefferson.
You gotta give him the mic, Andrew.
Oh.
Want to bring them up, or you want to sit down and bring them up?
Yeah, actually, if you want to come up, I'll sit down and then we'll
Turn the lights on too. We're trying to operate in,
Oh, we could save on electric. though.
transparency and light.
Good exercise.
I have plenty of exercise. Yeah, I got a couple of questions. I'm curious about, as a lifelong resident of town, I'm very concerned about what you did with the police department, pushing their top salary back to 12 years. Because I think that may decrease the quality of the police officer that you're going to get into town. And I have a couple other questions. Because it used to be 6 or 7 years when they were up to the top of their pay. I just think that if a police officer's, you got to have a college, you almost have a master's degrees today to get a policeman's job in a good town, unless you're going to work, in Florida. You know what I'm saying?
We have for one opening to be on the police force, literally hundreds of applications that are coming in.
I'm not talking about how many. I don't care how many people put an application. I'm talking about the quality of
Right,
it.
Mr. I think the other thing to keep in mind
quality's
is
never been better.
Yeah, but the other thing to keep in mind is that's really becoming the standard.
Yeah.
I mean, the way and again, I don't want to get into a long drawn out discussion about it, but the way the state has revised the arbitration process to finalize contracts, it's not uncommon to see towns go even higher than that. So I think we're right where we need to be in terms of the step schedule. And to agree with what Councilman Long said, I don't think it's hurt our quality at all.
And my other question, which I know, listen, the new garbage service is great, but the gated communities, you don't pick up the garbage in the gated communities, right? Like Rolling Meadows or Cedar Village.
We do.
You pick up
We do.
garbage in those? Yeah. Well, okay. My other question is, you're paying for it now. How about the golf course and the pool complex? Is that making money or not? Or is
The,
that
the
still
pool
losing money?
complex, again, we look at that as a package. It's the pool, the golf course, the rec programs, and the counseling
How
programs.
much money does the golf course and the pool complex generate a year?
Golf course in terms of revenue is about $340,000 a year in revenue.
20.
All right, so right around there. 320, 340 a year for the golf course.
And what's the pool?
If you include the snack bar, probably about a little over 200,000.
Probably higher than that.
All right.
I mean, when we did our analysis of it, we were making money with the
Right.
combination of all of those.
Well, in my opinion, I think you should raise up the fees over there.
At the golf course,
No, at the pool complex.
we have.
Yeah.
We just
Just did
adopted a fee ordinance a month ago or so.
Okay. Are we going to be able to ask questions about other things?
Yes, and let me read this statement and you can stay right
All right,
there. The
thank you.
purpose of this public portion is
One-stop
solely to ask
shopping.
questions, to understand resolutions and vouchers that appear on the agenda, and not an occasion for public hearing on an ordinance. All questions not related to an item on the agenda should be asked during the public comments portion of the conclusion of this meeting. Does anybody have any questions on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry. Seeing one. Name and address, please, for the record.
Paul Merowitz, 117 Cedar Village Drive, Ocean. The contract with American Recycling. It reads, will compensate $100 per month or 15 cents per pound collected.
Correct.
I'm assuming that's the greater of.
Correct.
Okay. Do we know what locations they're going to?
Recycling center.
Yes.
They're going to be at the recycling center.
Yes.
Do we know what charities will benefit?
I don't know if it's right in that. It's not in the contract. I don't know offhand. I believe it's in the portfolio that he gave us. Our concern was to get them off of other properties and into a centralized location was really what we were trying to accomplish.
Or is this going to get all of them off other properties?
Well, now that we have a centralized one, we can make that push to get them off of those other locations.
My concern is that when I looked at American Recycling's website, it indicated that it was a for-profit corporation
It is.
and that it would benefit nonprofits. The testimonial that they had on there was benefiting the PAL League. Except when I dug down a little bit deeper, the PAL League was in Pennsylvania. And it also reminds me of all the phone calls that I get from professional funding organizations trying to solicit funds from me. When I get those calls, I thank them and hang up. Primarily because there are a substantial number of nonprofits where the administrative fees are substantially less than those organizations that utilize professional fundraising organizations. And I think it behooves the Township Council, when they allow an organization that's a profit-making organization to fund a nonprofit, even if the nonprofit is within the township, to actually find out what percentage of the revenue flow is accruing to the nonprofit in the township. And that's a concern, and I don't know that the Township Council has specifically looked into that specific issue.
Duly noted.
And the council will report back.
Yes.
And we know who the principal officers are of American Recycling.
Yes.
So it's right in Ocean Township, on Sunset Avenue.
As I said, we'll get a report back. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. 007.
Mine is simple.
Vinnie 007. On ordinance 2268, veterans. Is that basically for employment purposes? For
No.
identification of the veterans?
No. That has to do with providing veterans with opportunities to have no fee charged to the veteran if the veteran can produce the Department of Defense Form 214. Then some of the fees that would be included would be things like, Vinny?
Pools, code fees, dog licenses, cat licenses, those type of things.
And of course, you will accept the veteran's certification from Monmouth County,
Oh, sure.
because they have worked us through their veterans program, where they will, if you don't have it, you can get the DD-214, and also you have a card that's given by the county
Sure.
identifying you as a veteran.
Sure.
Yep, all we need is the copy of that card.
I'll give it to you right now.
There you go. There you go. Your cat is
And they'll be
free.
good.
Your cat is free.
You'll also take the one from the courier.
I'll take whatever you got.
Are you accepting comments on the ordinances?
Not yet.
That's what I thought.
Well,
Well, they're really just introductions.
well, on the introduction or the one for adoption, because we will have a public hearing on the one for adoption.
No, these are introductions.
And we can take a comment on them now. Now would be the time.
It's very quick. Paul Merowitz. Did we notify
What ordinance?
the families?
Which ordinance?
Oh, I'm sorry. 2267. Did the township notify the residents living along Sunset Avenue and Logan Road about the no parking restrictions that
Yes.
are being introduced?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, tonight we have a consent agenda. There's no minutes, but resolution 16072 through 16077. Can we have a motion?
Offer?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any objections? Any abstentions? Okay. For individual action, we have resolution 16074, authorize the tax collector to issue a refund to the owner of block 3910, lot 2, due to an overpayment. Motion, please.
I think that's you, pal.
Somebody.
Rob to offer. I thought, Rob will offer.
Rob will offer.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Council members Achara,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Yes. 16076, execute a contract with American Recycling Resources to provide clothing bins at a designated location within the township. Motion, please.
Motion?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Council members Achara,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Yes. Resolution 16077, approve change order number 1 with GCS Contracting Corporation for the Town Hall interior renovation, decreasing the total amount by $8,358 from $234,800 to $226,442. Motion?
Motion?
I'll second.
Council members Achara,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Yes. Resolution 16078, authorized professional services contract with IH Engineers PC, Princeton, New Jersey to provide a traffic study evaluation on Sunset Avenue at a cost not to exceed $1,300. Motion, please.
Motion?
I'll second.
Council members Achara,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Yes. Resolution 16079, authorizing the transfer of available surplus revenue collected by the Sewage Authority. Motion, please.
Motion?
I'll second.
Council members Achara,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Yes. Tonight for adoption, we have ordinance 2263, an ordinance establishing a cap bank for the calendar year 2016. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We now have a public hearing on ordinance 2263. Anybody have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 2263.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any? Okay. Action on ordinance 2263. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2263 and publish in accordance with law.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Council members Achara,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Garofalo.
Yes. Tonight we have the introduction of 5 ordinances. All will have their public hearings on April 14th. First ordinance 2264, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the revised general ordinance of the Township of Ocean, 1965, authorizing stop intersections at various locations in the township, and those locations are
Franklin Avenue and Monroe Avenue, and Klein Street and Holbrook Street.
Okay, I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2264.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Garfala.
Yes. Ordinance 2265, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Ocean, 1965, designating certain streets as through streets, and those streets are.
Klein Street and Franklin Avenue.
I'll introduce ordinance 2265.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Garfala.
Yes. Ordinance 2266, or an ordinance amending ordinance number 2255, establishing salaries and compensation for certain officers, positions, and employees in the Township of Ocean. I'll move ordinance 2266.
I'll second that.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Garfala.
Yes. Ordinance 2267, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Ocean, 1965, prohibiting parking at various locations in the Township of Ocean. Those locations are?
Sunset Avenue, north and south, and Logan Road, east and west.
Thank you. I'll move ordinance 2267.
I'll second that.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Garfala.
Yes. And finally, ordinance 2268, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 2B of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Ocean, 1965, entitled Miscellaneous Administrative Provisions and Personnel Policies. And that is the ordinance that we were just talking about to give veterans a bit of a break on certain fees. And I will move ordinance 2268.
I'll second that.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Garfala.
Yes. Again, those ordinances will have their public hearing on April 14th. Before we go into public comments, I do have one comment that I should have made earlier. I did want to congratulate the police department, all of our officers, and Chief Peters on getting re-accredited. It really is an achievement, and it's again, talks to our police department on how professional they are and how good they are. That it was a simple process, and we flew through it, and we still have kept our accreditation, so congratulations to them. Yes, and it does help with our insurance rates.
It does.
Okay, any public comment? Please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Mr. Lefferson?
Sound good.
You're good. We can hear you.
I got a couple questions I want to ask you. I understand that the higher court ruled on the yeshiva deal was you're going to have 2 more meetings. And the first one is April 5th. And Mr. Arbus, at the second meeting, the board will have to take a vote, yes or no?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that's my first question. My second question is, if somebody in the neighborhood is renting a house, and they rent the upstairs, which has 2 bedrooms in it, for $800, can they rent the basement for $800?
That's a good question. I would have to.
I don't believe they can.
I think it's a single family dwelling.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think that, and again, it's my opinion. I don't think that you can even rent out part of it.
It's not working.
This is what I'm getting at. It would be like if I rented my house to somebody, $50,000, and they rented the basement for $800, and they rented the upstairs for $800, and they only have 2 bathrooms. I know people in the town that are doing this. I'm not going to say who it is, but I just know people that are doing this. You know what I mean?
If you see something, say something. That's all I can tell you. If we
Just watch that speaker.
I think if we knew who they were, we would have to send somebody to investigate that.
We are.
Over here. You'll be front and center. Talk into the microphone.
We had to cut the batteries out of the budget, right?
Talk to them.
let me tell you something. You should get a podium up there to begin with,
Bad idea.
and you should get this fixed. You spent money on the cameras. You know, this is. You know what this is? A ham and egg operation is what you got going on here. Okay. You could get back to me with an answer on that.
Well, I think I answered you. I don't think
Okay.
that they ended
Well,
there.
you don't know about. Okay. My other question is, I didn't come to the last meeting because I don't come to too many meetings anymore. So there was a woman that lives in my neighborhood who came to the last meeting and she complained about the conditions, not only in the Oakhurst section where I live, but in basically most of the town. And I agree with this young lady, because I know her, and then the township came by yesterday, and they cleaned up 2 properties. And they cleaned up, I'm not going to say where they are, well, I might say where they are, but I called up Mr. Mayor Siciliano yesterday because they cleaned up one house on Woodcrest. And the house across the street, not right across the street, but just to the little bit to the left of it, a little north, which would be on the west side, is in the same condition as the one that they cleaned up. So my question is, I talked to the manager about this on the phone. How do you categorize what house needs to be cleaned up and what other house? Plus, there's a car that's been parked on the lawn, on the side lawn for probably 4 years.
Well, how do we? A lot of it has to do with where we're at in the notice. Sometimes, once the notice gets to a certain point, they've come in, they've been before the judge, they still haven't done what they were ordered to do. Then we'll go in and clean it, and we will charge the property owner back. If they don't pay it, we'll put a lien against the property.
Well, listen,
so a lot of it is, we can't, just because the one next door is in bad condition.
That's across the street.
Well, I'm just saying, we can't go in and clean it because we have no way to recover the costs at that point until we've gone through the notice procedure.
But there's people living in this house.
As I told you on the phone, it doesn't matter whether we don't care if they're living in the house or not. They still get noticed the same way. They still get to have their day in court with the judge. And if they comply, then we're out of it. If they don't, again, whether they live there or not, then we have to go out.
Yeah, this is like 3 blocks up from where I live. It really doesn't bother me that much. But one thing in my neighborhood, in the summertime, especially in the summertime, when we have a big influx from people from another state, they park on the lawns, which is another thing I talked to you about, and I talked to Mayor Siciliano about. And you told me that the code enforcement people, you should do something where the police would have authority to be able to issue tickets for people to park on the lawn. Why should that? You know where I live. It's like me parking my car on my front lawn. Would my neighbors want to look at that in the summertime? Just think about that. You know what I'm saying. It's something that should be where the police can come by. All they got to do, they got equipment in the car. They take a picture of the car, the license plate, and send them a $150 ticket in the mail. And I guarantee they won't park on their lawn anymore. Some people in the summertime, people I work for, they pull up on their front lawn because they're too lazy to take their and the housekeepers come out and take their groceries out because you're too lazy to walk from the driveway to the front door, and then they leave their cars parked on the lawn. That is a quality of life issue as far as I'm concerned. Because somebody's got leaves on their property doesn't really bother me that much, but something like that really aggravates me. And another thing is, you passed an ordinance, which just is something that's going to be you probably won't, about smoking in the parks. Now, with the Italian American Festival coming up, my wife wanted me to ask you tonight. She smokes, so if she goes there, she's not going to be able to smoke.
There are exclusions already in the ordinance.
And the
there are exclusions. I'm sorry.
Okay, the fairground is excluded from that non-smoking, so they will be able to smoke in the fairground,
Regardless of who rents it.
regardless of who rents it.
Okay, well that's great. That's great. Okay, and that's great.
We won one. Okay, one for us.
Listen, my wife's a heavy smoker, so said she wasn't going this year because we go
She better go. She better
we go
buy
2 or 3
Staples.
times a night. We love the festival. And my other last question is, I'm on the planning board with Toll Brothers. They're giving the town $1.7 million, right?
I'm not sure what the number is,
not
but
either.
there's a contribution that's part of
Yeah, that's going to go in that affordable housing fund, correct? Now, you gave the Heritage Village that property, which the town paid 1.6 million for. So is that going to be like a kind of a wash, or are you going to leave that money in that account?
We could potentially use it to reimburse ourselves
Yeah.
for the cost of that contribution, yes.
Yeah. So I'm just curious about that.
But we haven't even gotten the money yet, so.
Well, I'm sure you're going to get that. So.
Well, it could be a year before we see that money. It could be longer.
Yeah, hasn't
Exactly.
been approved
That's what I'm
yet,
saying.
but
So
I'm
we
sure that's
counted
going to
on
be, yeah. But another thing, this is one thing you should get fixed. Again, thank you very
I don't
much.
think we can take that out of the.
Oh, and another thing I want to say to Mr. Long, one thing I want to say to Mr. Long, because he's a great guy. But my school taxes go up every year, so that's BS.
No, I didn't say
yeah.
your taxes didn't go up.
Yeah,
I said
so-
there was a 2% cap, and the board since 2011 was under the 2% cap. I can't speak for this year. I didn't say your taxes didn't go up.
Yeah.
I said they could have a levy of 2% for the
Yeah.
total budget, but they were under it every year since 2011, and I can't speak for the most.
Yeah. Yeah, but let me tell you, our great governor put that 2% cap on there, and the same thing he did with the health insurance, which was a good thing. But with the 2% cap, all the municipalities and the school boards get around it. And I still wish that the school board was in April so we could vote on the budget. But that's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Paul?
Do you want me to hold it for you, Paul? You're all right.
My legs give way, I'll let you know. Paul Meyerowitz. I spoke to our township clerk before the meeting started about the fact that the meeting agenda that was marked final, that I downloaded off the corporate website, did not have 16079, the TOSA resolution on it. My real question is not why it wasn't on the website. I assume that was timing. But the real issue is what made it so critical that the TOSA resolution get approved tonight rather than scheduling it for the next council meeting where it could have been on the public agenda and that people would have known about it.
Mr. Gallagher's over there. The TOSA, that has to be something we submit to the state, that TOSA resolution?
Goes with the budget, I think.
It has to be adopted prior to
It has to be adopted
the
before
budget
the
being...
budget.
Yeah.
I need the documentation for the budget,
Not the, I'm talking about the TOSA resolution we're doing tonight.
The shared
surplus.
service.
Well, no, we're talking about the
surplus
surplus one
number.
tonight.
Right.
Because we're
We're not-
self-exam this year, and I have to certify to the revenue. And what I used was documentation from their budget as backup for the revenue. But we also need to do that resolution, not only for the budget, but also to request the money from TOSA as well.
So I think that we have to get all that because we're not self-review. Every 3 years, our budget in advance of adoption, after introduction in advance of adoption, has to be sent to the state. If they see that line item in the budget as a anticipated revenue, and there's no resolution to support it, they're going to flag it. We don't want to have it flagged because we want to have that hearing on April 14th because we're still operating on a temporary budget.
It was my recollection that the 299 was in the draft budget package that was prepared weeks ago.
Well, we got two 299s we're dealing with here. We got the shared services agreement for 299, and we have the 5% of their operating budget 299. There's two separate items.
I thought they were both in there. I'll go on.
Oh, and again, we did that resolution last year. This isn't the first time we've done it.
In your workshop session, the council was considering a smoke shop ordinance. And I know this is something that a number of parents in the township have raised a concern about in terms of the frontage and the visibility of some of the items that the smoke shops sell legally. So I'm glad to hear that the council is considering a smoke shop ordinance. I still don't understand why we're not considering a sexually oriented business ordinance when we may have possible violations in the township.
We are.
We are What?
The last part of what you just said, you said sexually oriented business. Why isn't the township considering it? And my response to you was, we are.
Is there any timetable for when it might get presented?
We don't have a timetable right now. Mr. Arbus, I'll
No,
yield to
there's
you.
no timetable. There are a lot of issues, and we are reviewing it. And when we get to the point where there's something more concrete, it'll be presented.
Okay, I thought the last time this was addressed, we were not considering it, and we're now considering it?
I don't think we said we weren't considering it. I just think we said there were issues that we have to fully explore, and whether we do it or not.
Right, I think many months ago, you had come up about
Asked,
no knock.
asked and answered.
Right.
Okay? Asked and answered.
It's one of those issues where every time you take a step forward, there's two steps back. There's constitutional issues, there's legal issues, there's state statute issues. So we are weeding through them via our attorney, one at a time. It's not a simple issue that we wish it could be. But we are, but we are
Asked but answered.
we are weeding our way through.
Can I move on?
Any more?
Yes.
Sure.
Can I move on?
Yeah, please,
Before
More stuff?
please.
I do,
Remember,
unfortunately.
there's basketball tonight.
These meetings are taped,
Yes.
and they're broadcast on channel 77 and 78. I've had a conversation with the mayor about the simple fact that you can't record them on Cablevision. And I don't know what the township has done to determine what the situation is, but I've spent quite a few hours trying to go through the Cablevision structure. They've given me all sorts of answers, none of which make absolute sense. It's analog. We need digital. Well, there's no such thing as analog anymore. They said there's a copyright issue. Well, copyright is not an issue for something that's in the public domain, and clearly our meetings are in the public domain because they can be opened. They still haven't gotten back to me with an answer. I would ask the township, for the benefit of those residents who work at 10 o'clock in the morning, or for those individuals who work and come home at 7 o'clock and want to spend some time with their significant others and their kids, that somehow we make the availability of these township meetings available either through YouTube or we post them on the township website. I took a look at YouTube. Clearly there are townships that do this. Some townships have had 600 views of their issues. Some townships have had 10 views. But they make it available. And it's up to the residents whether or not they will avail themselves of it, as opposed to, I can't get to it. And I'd like to take a look at it. The last thing is, do we have wireless in this building that the public can utilize during a council meeting?
Yes.
Hold on. There's
Yes, there's a guest option when you scan the Wi-Fi signals.
Thank you.
I saw him shake his head yes. That's how I knew the answer.
he was answering the
I'm smart.
Anyone else? Mr. Hudson?
Just can't make me laugh.
Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy.
Well, that's all right.
There hasn't been a revolution yet.
Okay. A couple of things, all related to the various suits that the township is a part of.
Then I'll.
I'd like to get a brief update on that, but I'd also like to know how come the Board of Adjustment is having a 5-hour meeting instead of the regular 2-hour special meeting for the two meetings that are scheduled in April.
That is what the judge ordered.
Order of the
It was
court.
ordered by a federal judge.
The federal judge ordered to have
Ordered 2 5-hour meetings.
two 5-hour meetings.
Right.
And
Did
that's-
anybody object to that? I mean, that's really hard on the people that have to work, and
I have to
it's
tell you,
hard on the
Judge,
Board of Adjustment members.
We certainly could have objected. I wasn't there, but I could tell you that the judge was pretty adamant about it, once it's done.
Okay, it would be much better for everybody if they had 3 meetings.
Well, I'll tell you what. You go to see the judge. You let her know what your thoughts are.
Oh, it's a lady, huh? Okay.
Charm her and let her know your thoughts.
Does that make a considerable difference, Mr. Hudson?
I guess so. Why not? I would just like to get a general summary as to what our situation is anywhere regarding the various suits. You can make it rather brief, but I'd like to know whatever is available.
But
Thank
if
you.
I'm speaking, it'll be brief. COA lawsuit, again, that's more of all the municipalities are involved, big lawsuits. I think we were supposed to have a trial date in June. That's probably getting put off. There are more discovery issues. So I'm not quite sure where we stand in terms of the overall COA situation. And in terms of Stop and Shop, they've refiled a complaint again, and now we have to file an answer within a certain period of time. That's pretty much it in terms of...
That's it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming out.